What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another week of NFL picks. Week 4. It's already hard to believe that after this weekend, the first quarter of the season will pretty much be done with. But hey, the season is going to slowly start to move on, but we still got a lot of good football left. A lot of good games this week. I will say this was probably the toughest week to pick of games so far this season. There's a lot of 50-50 games. But I picked them, and without further ado, let's get right into it. Results so far last week, went 11-5, which is pretty good. I think my first week I won 11, week 2 I won 12, and this past week I won 11 games. So staying consistent, winning 11, 12 games a week, which I think for picks, anything winning 10 games or above is a good week for picks. I think 8 to 9 and subpar, and anything below 8 is a bad week. Obviously, we all have bad weeks, but if you're picking below 8 consistently, then you probably don't know what the hell you're talking about. 34-14 so far as an overall record, which is good. Lock of the week and upset of the week. I was 2-0 before this past week. Now I'm 2-1 in both those categories. So getting right into it, Thursday night football, the Detroit Lions at Green Bay Packers. NFC North matchup between, I clearly think, two of the best teams in this division. I think there's no doubt about that. Green Bay, so far, it's been impressive for them. Week 1, they got a win over Chicago, which that was expected. Week 2, they lost down here in Atlanta, but they looked good doing it. And last week, erasing a 17-point deficit and beating the Saints. Detroit, they got that big opening night win in Kansas City. They lost to Seattle in a shootout week 2. And they got back on track against the Falcons this past Sunday. So two teams, and this could very well go a long way in determining this NFC North. I think a lot of people will just go ahead and say Detroit wins because you think Detroit's back on track after that win. But I think it's going to be a close one. I really do. And this was a 50-50 game. It was a tough one to pick. But I'm going with the home team. I think Green Bay in Lambeau Field on Thursday night, obviously early in the season, so you don't see those elements. But I still think Green Bay, it's a division game at home. I'm going to take the Packers here. I like what I've seen out of Jordan Love. I think that offense, it's still going to take time to get going, but you started to see it slowly but surely get going. And that defense is also very good as well. Green Bay, I think, is a team a lot of people slept on. And I was one of the few people that I think saw that Green Bay really does have a chance in this division along with Detroit. And also, Week 18 last year, Detroit goes in, beats Green Bay, leaves a bad taste in their mouth. I think they're going to be ready to come out and get back in the win column versus Detroit at home. I'm going to take the Packers here. Close game, but I'll take Green Bay to win and go to 3-1. Detroit 2-2 after this. Next game, Sunday, getting into the Sunday action. Sunday morning for me. My Falcons at the Jacksonville Jaguars in London, obviously across the pond, having to wake up at 9:30 to watch my team play against a Jacksonville team that pretty much lives in London once, and they're playing twice this year. So that's pretty much their home away from home. Obviously, it was a tough loss for us last week against Detroit. We made a lot of mistakes. Jacksonville, they got shocked by Houston last week. So two teams looking to get back into the win column. I'm not going to talk too much about this game because obviously I'll save it all for my preview tomorrow, but the Falcons made a lot of mistakes against Detroit. That potentially costed us a win. I don't think we're making those same mistakes 2 weeks in a row. I'm going to take the Falcons here. I think we're going to get back on track and get back in that win column. I like us going to London, being able to bond as a team. Arthur Smith has experience with this before. So I like that standpoint. Jacksonville, for me at least, kind of hard to see them going to 1-3, especially this Jaguars team. But I think they can get back on track. Jacksonville, I think they're a team that can definitely be beaten. So I like it from that standpoint. I think the Falcons get back on track. So Falcons go to 3-1, Jacksonville 1-3 after this. Getting into the early afternoon action, the Rams at Colts. Rams 1-2, Colts 2-1. The Colts had a nice win last week versus Baltimore. They currently sit atop that AFC South. The Rams, they won week 1 versus the Seahawks. Last 2 weeks, they've kind of been in a slump. Another one that was tough to pick. I definitely think Indianapolis. I've said this now for months. I like the direction they're heading in, and they're definitely heading on the upward trajectory. But I feel like this is a game that's going to come down to really Aaron Donald being able to wreak havoc on that Indianapolis offense. And I think the Rams, I think they bounce back and I think they get a win. I think it's probably going to be another big game for Puka Nacua and Matthew Stafford. I think Aaron Donald probably has a pretty good game. Vintage Aaron Donald wrecking havoc. And obviously, I think Indianapolis will be able to put up a fight. They're at home. But in the end, I'm going to have to go with the Rams. I think they get back on track. They have a lot more veterans on their team. I think they're going to be hungry to get that win, and I think they'll get it. So both teams 500 after this game. Rams win. Next game, another division game. Baltimore at Cleveland. This was a very tough one to pick. Initially, I skewed Baltimore. I thought that they would get the win, but at home in Cleveland, in the dog pound, I'm going to go with the Browns here. I think it's going to be a defensive ball game. I don't think you're going to see a lot of high scoring. I think this is a great spot for a guy like Jerome Ford to showcase his potential. Obviously, that Cleveland offense looked to really finally come together last week. Amari Cooper had a good game. Deshaun Watson, he finally looked like he was finally finding a groove in Cleveland. Kareem Hunt is back there. Jerome Ford, I think, obviously Baltimore's going to come in there and give a tough fight. But I'm going to give this one to Cleveland in the end. Close game, but I'm going to give it to Cleveland here. Next game, battle of 2 0-3 teams, Minnesota and Carolina. Two teams that definitely could at least be in the win column once, especially Minnesota. I don't think you were expecting them at all to start this season 0-3. So these are two teams that pretty much, if you don't win here, the season could very well be over. I will say, I definitely think that Minnesota, they are better than their record says, but at the same time, you are what your record says you are. And Minnesota does not have a good defense. Carolina, Andy Dalton started last week, and that offense looked like the best it had been so far this season. It looked more smooth. And even in Seattle, they were causing havoc and all those penalties. Andy Dalton still looked pretty all right, and he was getting the ball out to DJ Chark and Adam Thielen and those weapons for Carolina. I know it's kind of a flyer. Bryce Young, it doesn't look like he's going to play this week. I would probably bet and say they're starting Dalton again. I think Carolina gets their first win of the year. It's so tough to see Minnesota going 0-4, but man, that defense is just so awful. I think Adam Thielen could definitely go off in this game versus former team, and it's going to be an offensive shootout probably, but I think Carolina, last-second field goal, I think they pick up the win here. And I think they get their first win of the year. Minnesota will still be searching for their first after this game. Next game, Cincinnati at Tennessee. It finally looks like the Bengals might be finding their rhythm after the first few weeks. The Titans, they had a pretty good win against the Chargers week 2. Ugly loss versus the Saints week 1. very ugly loss in Cleveland this past weekend. I think Cincinnati, they're starting to get back on track. Tennessee, that's just a team that I think is on the decline. I think Cincinnati, this is where their offense is finally going to start to show those flashes we know that they can produce. Jamar Chase had a nice game yesterday. I think he's going to probably have another one Sunday. And I think Tennessee, as I said, I think this is a team really headed on the downward trajectory, while this is really where Cincinnati is finally going to be able to put it all together and get back into that rhythm. So give me the Bengals here over the Titans. Next game, NFC South battle. Tampa Bay and New Orleans. Both teams got their first loss this past weekend. Tampa Bay, they got kind of really, demolished, or I guess you can say brought down to earth more so is what I would say, against that Philadelphia team. And New Orleans blew that big lead versus Green Bay. It doesn't look like Derek Carr will play, so it's going to be Jameis Winston, the former Buck, going. This is a game that you can make the case for either team here. I think there's definitely a case for Tampa Bay. They get back in that win column, but it is in the Dome. Alvin Kamara is going to be coming back. And with Jameis Winston, he has not gotten that full crack at Tampa Bay. I think the Saints will probably get this one. I definitely would probably say that I think that New Orleans defense could definitely do a lot of what Philadelphia did. Marshawn Lattimore has great history with covering a Mike Evans. I think they could probably definitely hold that Tampa Bay offense in check. I think bringing Alvin Kamara back, getting him back into the swing of things, I think is definitely going to be beneficial for New Orleans. Those receivers, they can, carve your defense up. So I'm going to go with the Saints here. I think they go to 3-1 as well, right with the Falcons. Next game. Another division matchup, and man, this is going to be a good one. Miami at Buffalo. The Dolphins, there's nothing that needs to be said. They broke modern-day NFL records for a single game last week. We'll probably never see a team score 70 points again. In Buffalo, they got a very nice win against a Washington team going into last week that was undefeated. Demolished them. So this is going to be, in my opinion, a great game. I'm going to go ahead and say this is the game of the week. I think you're going to see a lot of firepower from these two offenses. And I think, you're thinking there's no way you can bring Miami down after scoring 70, but it's up in Orchard Park. And I think it's going to be a great game and a closely fought one. I think Buffalo's offense is going to be able to prevail here. And I think obviously you're going to see a very nice stay still out of Miami's offense, but it's hard to duplicate that high power and such force coming from an offense 2 weeks in a row. I think Buffalo, they're going to get this one. It's in Buffalo. Going to be a great game, but I got the Bills here. So going from the game of the week to what will probably end up being the worst game of the entire season, potentially, versus the two worst teams in football. It even hurts talking about this game. Denver got embarrassed last week. Chicago is an absolute dumpster fire. Either of these teams could win. This could end in a tie for all we care. But I actually think it is in Soldier Field. I'm going to go with the Bears here just because, man, Denver, it does not look good at all. And letting up 70 points, I don't know how you can possibly come back from that. I'm not saying Denver won't win a game. They will, but it's going to be so hard to recover 1 week, even if you are facing the team who might arguably be the worst in football. So this is in no way an impressive win by Chicago. It's just Denver looks absolutely awful at this point in the season. But nonetheless, the Bears do get their first win here. I don't even think either of these teams are cracking 10 points. But the Bears do get the win nonetheless. Next game. Another division game. Got a lot of division games here in week 4, man. Washington and Philadelphia. Washington last week, they were 2-0, and they got smacked in the mouth by Buffalo. And so they're going to definitely be looking to get back on track. Philadelphia, They're 3-0. They're one of 3 undefeated teams, but man, has it looked ugly, kind of. I know they got the largest win of the season yesterday, but even at that Philadelphia offense, outside of that one big play to Zacchaeus, and obviously DeAndre Swift, it didn't look the best. And if there's any front four that can stop that Philadelphia rushing attack, it's probably Washington. Last year, they were 8-0, and Washington went in there on a Monday night and ended their hopes of an undefeated season. I think the same thing's going to happen here. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think Washington is going in here, and I think they're going to give Philadelphia their first loss of the year. Yeah, I guess you can really say when Philadelphia is undefeated, Washington is their kryptonite. They got the defense, I think, to stop that Philadelphia offense that loves to run through the ground. It's a division game, so anything can happen. But I'm going to go with Washington here. I think that offense just does just enough to pick up that win in the upset of the week for me. Next game, Pittsburgh and Houston. Kind of just a whatever type of game. J.J. Watt is going into the Texans Hall of Fame, so that is definitely something nice for all Texans fans. I think it's going to be a close game. Listen, C.J. Stroud, without a shadow of a doubt, has looked like, out of all 3 of the ones starting, the best rookie quarterback without a doubt. That Houston team is headed in the right direction. I think we see that. But Pittsburgh going in there, it's going to be a tough game. You know the Steelers fans are going to take over. I got to give this one to Pittsburgh. I think Houston could show life at times, but I think that Pittsburgh defense is probably going to go in there, put C.J. Stroud. This could very well be C.J. Stroud's welcome to the NFL game. Because, I mean, especially with T.J. Watt in that Pittsburgh front, they can wreak havoc, man. And I think this could end up being a tough day for the Texans. So I'm going to go with the Steelers here, 3-1 on the year. Houston 1-3 after this. Heading into the late window here, the Raiders and Chargers. These are really 2 teams. They're fighting for their season in that AFC West. The Raiders, tough loss on Sunday against the Steelers. And the Chargers got in the win column for the first time this season against Minnesota. So, obviously in LA, obviously there will probably be a lot of Raiders fans there. But these are 2 teams that really, they're not the most impressive, but that Chargers offense, even with Mike Williams gone, they can definitely cause some trouble. Justin Herbert, we all know how good of a quarterback he is, and this is probably what it comes down to. I think Justin Herbert has a great day, and it's going to be a close offensive shootout, but I'm going to give it to the Chargers here. I think they get to 500 after this. Raiders fall to 1-3. Next game, the San Francisco 49ers against the Arizona Cardinals. Another division game. I think the 49ers are going to do what the Cowboys couldn't. And I think they're going to take care of business here in Arizona in the desert. Obviously, I think this game might be a little closer, at least scoreboard-wise, than I would have said a week ago. But I just think it's overall, I just think Washington, that was a close game. The Giants, Dallas, they did not take this Arizona team seriously. I think the 49ers will. I think when looking at it for San Francisco, they, I think, might have the best team in the NFL overall. One of the top offenses and maybe the best defense in the NFL. I think they go in here, they take care of business against Arizona as they should. They'll head into a big game next Sunday night against Dallas. But San Francisco, I think after week 4, will probably be the only undefeated team left in the NFL. 49ers move to 4-0 after this. Next game, New England and the Cowboys. Obviously, 2 historic franchises. The Patriots, they got their first win last week. The Cowboys absolutely dumped the bed, whatever you want to say, last week against Arizona. This is one I could definitely see going either way, but I think it's in Dallas. The Cowboys, that was really their reality check. I think it's going to be a close game, but I'm going to give it to Dallas here. It's in Jerry World. I think they're going to be fired up. They're going to be looking to get back in that win column. I think it's going to happen here. So give me the Cowboys over New England. On Sunday night, the Kansas City Chiefs visiting the Zach Wilson-led New York Jets. Man, I just think it's going to be very tough seeing the Jets in a lot of these primetime games this year. So I'm going to go ahead and say Kansas City. I think if there's any game I'm confident in this week, it's probably this. I think the Chiefs. I think that Jets defense could, hold them in check from just absolutely going off on this Sunday night, but it's gonna be tough sledding once again for the Jets here. I think Kansas City goes in, and this is actually, I think, Mahomes' first start in MetLife, but I think they go in and they're going to get a very nice win here versus the Jets to continue trending up in the right direction for the defending world champions, going to 3-1 here. Final game of the weekend, Monday night, the Seahawks at Giants. So Sunday night with the Jets, Monday night with the Giants in MetLife. Second time that's happened this season. The Giants don't do good in prime time, and Seattle, they're really starting to get back on track. Obviously, San Francisco's in that division, but Seattle's going to firmly be in the wild card race in the NFC. So I think they'll go in here, and I think that offense is going to do wonders. Daniel Jones will probably have another terrible game. It's in prime time. He's 1-11 in prime time. I think Geno and the boys on that Seattle offense, they'll go in, have a nice game, and give me Seattle to win here, getting a nice 31-16 win and moving to 3-1. Giants 1-3. So that's it, man. Week 4, obviously, a lot of tough games to pick, but we're getting through the season. Already through, getting to week 4 now. But hey, the season continues to go on. So with that being said, appreciate you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.